Hello everyone and welcome back to the Hammered Corner. I hope you're all having a great start to your 2022 collecting journey now that we are 3 months in. In today's video, I will be showcasing a very uncommon penny from the reign of Henry V, struck using locally made dies. But just before we get into it, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as without you, I couldn't make any of this possible. So it's been a great first few months of collecting hammered coins since the beginning of 2022. And here is a coin that I purchased from a Facebook member at the very end of 2021, from the reign of Henry V. This is the first time Henry V has been mentioned here on the channel, and that is because this is the first of his reign to grace my coin cabinet. Yes, that's right, after almost 2 years of coin collecting, I have found one to add to my collection. They are by no means rare, but when you compare them to coins of his son, Henry VI, they are far more uncommon. But at this point in numismatic history, the coins produced under Henry V were very crude, and they almost always had no legends remaining. This is because the amount of silver used was dramatically reduced and the dies were smaller, and thus resulting in smaller coins, most of which didn't fill the die completely, hence the coins were very poor legends. Now Henry V was renowned for his military success, winning multiple victories in France during the 100 Years' Wars. This long war meant that money was extremely tight, as the kings would use the crown's profits on the troops he subsequently needed for the wars. This resulted in the coin's weight being reduced and the dies having been made locally too. Now what do I mean when I say this example was made using local dies? Well, during the medieval times, the coin dies were produced and bought from the London Mint, where they issued the very best engravers to produce them. But from time to time, the dies were made at provincial mints, York and Durham, engraved at the mints themselves. Most of the times the issuing of local dies was not officially granted, and unfortunately for us, there isn't a lot written on the research of local dies used during Henry V's reign. So even to the untrained eye, at first glance you can see how poorly made these coins were. Not only in the strike, but the overall resulting coin, and not to mention the die engraving itself. This wasn't the only issue of dies to be made locally, and they follow the same class system. And for those interested, this coin was minted in York and is a Class F. The Archbishops of York never made proper grants to engrave dies, but they used locally made dies between the years 1377 and 1465, under Richard II, Henry V, Henry VI and Edward IV. The York mint master at the time of Henry V, John Assingwold, appeared before the mayor and sheriffs of the city in 1415 to answer the accusation that he had caused dies to be made in secret in the city. But he was discharged after he produced a Charter of Liberties which included a writ, Henry I delegating the judgment of false moneyers to the Archbishop. Presumably the Archbishop was ready to exonerate the mintmaster. Now there were times too where locally made dies were created by London engravers that were sent to work at the provincial mints, and this too would be known as a locally made die. So coins that were minted throughout all of the kings and queens would have been minted using die engravers in London, even when they were minted at the provincial mints, so be sure not to get confused. It is a fascinating period of history, and special thanks to all the Facebook members who created a thread and provided lots of information for the video. So now let's look at this example more closely. On the obverse we have the front-facing bust of the king, we have the Pix mark at the top of the coin, and the legend reads Henrik Rex Angli ZF, which translates to Henry, King of England and France. Now this coin, as I mentioned, is a Class F, and we know this as next to the crown we have a mullet to the left and a trefoil to the right. On the reverse we have a long cross pate, 3 pellets between quarters with a quatrefoil in the centre, and the quatrefoil is a big giveaway that the coin is minted in York. The legend would read Civitas Ebor Raki, translating to the city of York. And finally, let us compare our coin of locally made dies to a Class F coin from the official London dies. As you can see from the coin from official dies, it is starting to look a lot like the coins produced by Henry IV and Henry VI, with the style of the coin looking very similar. A very easy giveaway that distinguishes the official portrait of Henry V that we can see on the right is that he has a very long and thin neck. The locally made dies has a thicker and more cartoon appearance to the bust, and the neck is thick with broad shoulders and has some kind of pit to the centre of the chest. For those who were lucky enough to possess a Henry V with London dies should know that they are much rarer than those minted from local dies. Even better if you have a coin minted at the provincial mints, minted using official dies. And that is why this is such an interesting period in numismatic history, and we are all waiting for an expert to write a study on them further. And finally, just to finish off, we can see a comparison between the locally made dies, the official dies, and a coin from Henry VI, Henry V's son. So you can start to compare and notice the differences ready for when you find one, or when you want to help a friend and fellow collector ID their coins on Facebook groups. And for those who are struggling to see the differences, I promise it will get easier, but it takes hours of research and looking at coins for it to click. So stay positive and make sure to ask lots of questions, as we are all here to help each other. This example cost £65 including special delivery, and is very special to me, as it was a Christmas present from my mum and dad. So big thanks to them for the present, for everyone's help with the information, and for all of you watching each and every week. So there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and that you've come away learning something new. Be sure to subscribe and check out over 90 videos here on the channel. Let me know down in the comments what Henry V coins you have in your collection. And thank you all for watching, and as always, keep collecting.